Good morning. Karen Scholl with the Alaska Incident Management Team and my partner Jim Hudson with CAL FIRE Team 5 here for your August 19th morning briefing. As we talked about yesterday, the fire was zoned. It's one big fire, but we've zoned it into two north zone and a south zone. And I'll be talking about the north zone, and we'll start down here in our southeast portion of our fire. So yesterday and overnight, everything's holding really well where it is in its current footprint on our side. We do have some movement to the south, southwest, and we're working hand in hand with CAL FIRE on where we're going to join the control lines as we start putting them in out here near the High Palm Road. We're continuing to work the spot fire that we had up near Hay Press. We've got dozer line around it. Everything's looking really good in the Hay Press area. And that's all holding, and we continue to push our dozers across the Pattison Ridge and prep that ridge for containment lines. The future plan there is we bring it down and around Pattison Jeep Trail and Pattison Peak Ridges and tie it in down below somewhere with the High Palm Road, and then bring it across and tie in with CAL FIRE as they come from the west. So all that's looking good. Minimal fire activity and fire behavior in that area. Everything along the power corridor held real nicely, no issues there. We did have a north wind, but it didn't seem to actually surface on the south end of the fire here for us. So everything was holding real nice. We've got crews patrolling and mopping up, and everything along the power corridor is looking very good. Over in the Chaparral Mountain area and around the N60 road and the Underwood Road, our firing operations have been completed, and structures in that area have been protected. As fire still moves in and still is closing up in that area, we've got some concerns, and so we're more or less monitoring that and ensuring that anything that spots out, that we go ahead and get a hold of that. Didn't have any control issues there yesterday, but it is still kind of a potentially dynamic situation down there. Crews did monitor all the way around the corner up into the Burnt Ranch area. Everything's looking good. Through the canyon, Del Loma Big Bar, probably seen some crews in there starting to remove hose around a lot of the structures that were prepped and saved. And so we're feeling really good about a lot of this, and that same type of activity will be happening today with pulling of some hose in certain areas, Big Bar, Del Loma, and the other little communities in through the canyon. Up in the Burnt Ranch area and parts north, the fire continues to back down off Ironside. It's holding still on the east side of the Trinity and south of the New River, and that's all looking very good. We had crews up in the Big Creek Road, and the fire's held up on that old scar and a road up in there. We did get some slops over that road, and so we've got crews in there picking that up, and so that should kind of keep that northerly progression to a minimum. We also have crews walking dozers in along the Big Creek Road to push the dozer line, old dozer line, reopen it down to the New River in an attempt to keep forward progression from the north, and then also box it in along the New River. Up in the Denny Creek area, we're looking at the Denny Road. We'll be moving folks up in that area with heavy equipment along the Denny Road to be able to open up the dozer line on the ridge south out of Denny back down to the New River and the confluence there as another blocking action for movement of the fire to the west. So you'll see fire equipment and personnel moving through Denny and down. You also might see folks up in Trinity Pines, Hawkins Bar, Salyer area doing some structure assessments and getting a plan together in case we do get a east push, east wind that pushes fire across our lines, planning for structure protection up in those areas. Across the top of the fire, we did not have very much fire progression or fire growth. I mean, it's still all open. This is running up into the wilderness, so we did have some movement of the fire, but not a whole lot. And then over in the North Fork of the Trinity area. We did have a spot that we had identified yesterday across the North Fork of the Trinity. That's about 15 acres. And then there's another spot found across the river just north of there. We're trying to get crews in there, folks walking in. It's really rugged country, as you know. But those spots didn't really grow yesterday. They were kind of hanging out where they were at. We're looking at the nice ridge above Helena to, potentially pre-treat with retardant when we can fly. And then if we need to, if this fire wants to push a little bit, we'll be ping-ponging it or putting aerial ignitions along that ridge to back it down back to the main fire in order to take the energy out of it and hopefully reduce the amount of potential spotting over across the North Fork and then potentially in between the North Fork and Canyon Creek. So that's the plan there. Crews continue to prep along the East Fork Road and then up into the Hobo Gulch area, and just prepping along that entire area in case we do get fire impingement. Crews also are continuing to patrol and help with the mop-up and monitoring of the fire along the 299 to the east. So that's the overall view of what happened on the north zone of the fire, and I'll turn it over to Jim.
Well, good morning. Jim Hudson, Operations Chief, CAL FIRE Incident Management Team 5. For the South Zone, just for some reference, this is the second day of having a zone fire going from basically just to the northwest of Junction City at Highway 299 at Cooper Flat down to Hay Fork, just to the west of Himapalm Road. So our priorities continue to be protecting the communities of Junction City, Weaverville, Douglas City, and Hay Fork, and all associated residents and private properties within that area. As we work around the map, I'll talk about some of the actions we're taking and some of the progression that we saw yesterday and our plans for today. In Junction City, we saw milder fire conditions that we had seen in previous days, and the fire lines are holding very well. Just to the southwest of Junction City, we're continuing to improve those lines there, widen and improve, and then begin to extinguish any heat into the perimeter from there. In the Dutch Flat area, the fire began to back down the hill, which gave us an opportunity to go in a direct attack, which means basically building fire line right along the edge of the fire as it backed down there, and we'll continue that line all the way down to Maxwell Creek Road down here at Highway 3. What that does is allows us to get in and prevent the eastern progression of that fire towards Weaverville and Douglas City, and we're actively looking at putting in indirect control lines, utilizing ridges or roads that are advantageous where we feel that we can hold the fires, as well as scouting for contingency line should we need them in the future. But definitely the fire up on this side of the fire and to the west, the north, and the east side was milder than we've seen in days past. The majority of the activity was down towards Hay Fork on the southern end of the South Zone. We did have fire progression on the Maxwell Creek Road area, and for the folks in Hay Fork, the fire is basically burning it's creating a horseshoe of unburned fuel just to the north of Hay Fork. But as it transitions in there and the fuels in the terrain become flatter, we have a better advantage, and using that to build direct line where the fuels where we can move quicker and across the bottom and go direct where possible. Where we can't build direct control line, we are continuing to go indirect with places that we can get ahead of the fire, utilize a ridge, and that's advantageous for our crews. In all the communities, you'll see fire engines spread out across the entirety of the area, protecting structures, doing patrol of the areas, as well as heavy equipment, bulldozers working ridges. You might see them on the roads. They're moving from section to section on those indirect areas. They are going to work, but we're using the terrain and the conditions to our advantage here to make sure that they're in the appropriate area. And we understand down in the Hay Fork area, it isn't under evacuation order. At this current time, the east side and west side, the fire, like I said, has created that horseshoe of unburned fuel in there, but we are going direct on that. And with the evacuation order, we are moving as quick as possible. We do have engines spread across Hay Fork to protect your property. and we'll continue to keep you updated on that. And if you do go into an evacuation warning in any other areas, please be prepared to leave, and I assure you that we're getting crews in there as quickly as possible. Aircraft utilization has been a challenge due to the smoke conditions on this fire. Just because we might see clear air in some of these communities doesn't necessarily mean they can get off the ground in the valley. Northern California is under a blanket of smoke right now at a lot of our helibases and airports that we utilize, but we will place them in the area of priority and where they can do the greatest amount of work in regards to aviation safety once they can get off the ground. Thank you.